In this video, I'm going to show you how you can install a graphical user interface or GUI way of managing your PPAs on a Linux or Ubuntu system. Now, I know that you don't have to use the command line, which is the terminal, to install all your software, but on my website I have a lot of ways of installing software by using the terminal, because all you have to do is just simply copy and paste. But for a new user, that can be very intimidating. Now, there's a lot of ways that you can install software without opening up the terminal. One is using an application called AppGrid. And if you're using the Ubuntu Mate, there's the Software Boutique, and the Ubuntu has the software, or used to be called the Software Center. And there's other packages that you can download and install that will allow you to install software on your Linux system by the click of a button, like an install button on the system, that will automatically install, and you never have to open up the terminal. But in certain situations, you might Google an application and you find a website that provides a link, or not necessarily a link, that has information where you install the repository. Then it tells you to update your system, then install it by using the command line. A lot of times that can be a little intimidating for a new user. So I'm going to show you how to use the command line to install for the first time. And then after that, when you see a PPA, all you simply need to do is just copy the PPA that you want to add. You don't have to copy everything and put into the command line as you see here. But to install the program, let me read you the definition. The definition is a PPA Manager is a tool that allows you to manage your PPAs on your system. And I failed to mention that in the description here that it's a GUI, or graphical user interface. I have another description here. It allows you to search for PPAs from Launchpad and install them on your system without using the terminal. It also allows you to view all the PPAs added to your system. It allows you to add PPAs to your system, remove them, purge your existing PPAs in a graphical user environment. And there's more things that you can do than what's on the description. So to start with, you open up your terminal and you copy this entire line as you normally would for any software that you find across the internet. And I just show you step by step. Paste it in there, press the enter key. The next thing you want to do is to go sudo apt update, press the enter return key, and then lastly is sudo apt install y-ppa manager. Wait till it finishes, and if it doesn't show up in your menu, reboot your system, and then it should show up in your menu somewhere. Since I'm using the traditional menu of Ubuntu Mate, mine's in the application, system tools, and as you can see at the very bottom, it is the PPA Manager. Now this was on an old desktop that I did last week because I decided to upgrade my desktop system from Ubuntu 18.04, the long-term support, to version 20.04, long-term support. But I did run into a problem, and I'll discuss more about that later. But when you execute the program, you'll have to put in your password. Normally that's the password that you put in when you update your system or you upgrade your system. And the reason why is when you're making changes to your PPAs, that has to be done by an administrator, and that gives it administrator privileges or super user privileges. And here's what the program looks like when it opens. You see there's several buttons. Like if I wanted to add a PPA, let's say for example, and I'm not going to add this because it's already installed, as you saw the steps that I went through. But when you click on to add, it will bring you up a little dialog box that allows you to add a PPA, and you can only add the section, not the whole line. So let me go to Applications, go to my System Tools, click on PPA Manager, and in a moment it'll ask you for your password. Enter your password. Once that you have your password entered, click the Authenticate button or press the Enter Return key, and it will load as this little small dialog box. You have 6 little buttons to choose from. Now the advanced button has a lot of features within it, and I'll show you in just a moment. But let's say, and notice I'm logged in as a super user. Let's say I want to add a PPA. I come across the website, and I notice on that website there it says to install a PPA by putting sudo add apt repository PPA. All you got to do is start where it says PPA here, copy the whole rest of the line. As you see here, right click, hit copy, open up the PPA, let me minimize so you don't see all this in the background. When you hit Add PPA, it'll take a moment and then it will load up a little smaller dialog box. It's the Add PPA dialog box as a super user. Notice it says Enter a PPA and it shows you an example. You have to have the format of PPA, all lowercase letters, and that's important, with a colon, and then there's the rest of the PPA that you would be adding. So if I wanted to add this, I could just simply paste that there. Now I've already got it added, so I'm not going to add it twice. But if I were to add that, I'd hit OK. In a few moments, it would go through and add the PPA to my system. So that way I can install the software. If I was going to install another program, let's say other than that, then I could open up my terminal and then just put that one line rather than putting 1, 2, 3 lines of information from a website. That simplifies installing things from your terminal. Another thing is I can search all PPAs here. So when I click onto it, I'm going to say search for, let's say that I search for Blender. Blender is a graphical user interface program that allows you to edit images. So I can say do a basic search. It's faster, but it displays less accurate information. What it's doing is it's searching all of the Launchpad PPAs for the word Blender, and it's going to show you repositories for that particular project. So let me hit OK. Now you don't see anything happening like you normally would in a normal search bar. Normally you see a search bar, you'd see a progress bar or something moving back and forth or scrolling across here. You actually see nothing. But when it finishes, you'll get a little notification in the upper right hand corner, and then immediately after that you'll get a dialog box to pop up displaying all the images, or not just images, all the links with the PPA. So while it's searching Launchpad, let me come down here and I'll show you how to use that feature. So let's say that I click here and I search for Blender, and in a few moments when it does, it'll create a little dialog box here. But on my desktop system it found 1, 2, 3, 4, and it should still find 4 because at the time I was using Bionic Beaver, and here is also using the Bionic on this particular web page. So here's the list. We didn't see the little dialog box because I was on my web page, but if I would have been minimized, you would have seen here. So if I wanted to add that PPA to my system, let's say if I got Blender, and I may not even have it on this particular one. I don't. But let's say if I wanted to install Blender. Now I can tell you, if you try to install this version 2.91, it will install some updated dependencies. So if you ever decide to upgrade your Bionic to Ubuntu 20.04, the long-term support, it will update some dependencies that will not allow you to update unless you roll back those dependencies. So I didn't choose this one. I chose this one. And so if you look on my website and you come down here, this was the Blender that I had on my desktop at the time that I installed it. So I installed a newer version of the PPA, which is this one. So once I hit install the PPAs, when I run sudo apt-get update and upgrade, it upgraded my Blender from 2.9b, which was beta, to the newer version of 2.90.1. Now as you can see here, there is a newer version, 2.91.0, but on Ubuntu 18.04, like I said, it will update a lot of dependencies that will prevent your Ubuntu 18.04, the long-term support, to upgrading to the 20.04. So rather than trying to roll back, and if you got like time shift or something where you can roll back, then you could probably try, but I wouldn't recommend it. And this can be dangerous. And let me minimize this so you're not looking at two images. If you're a new user, I wouldn't try to just search for something and randomly pick here, say, well, that's newer than what I've got. Because sometimes when you install from a third-party repositories, it will update dependencies that may break other applications on your system, and it could even break the operating system. So before you actually start just randomly searching and clicking on a PPA and to install from that repository, do a little research on it and see what other people from that PPA has. So that's not one of the main things that I want to point out, is being able to upgrade or install from the PPA search. That can be a very dangerous feature, so be careful about using that feature and also adding a PPA. Here you can change the settings. You click on it and it loads up. You can say to purge the PPAs manual, or you can drop down and say auto. I don't want it to automatically purge PPAs. I want to be able to do that manually. Now for some reason when you're working for PPAs, if it's not showing the correct version, and I'm using Ubuntu 18.04. So if I go to my system and go to my system profiler and benchmark, when it loads, you can see I'm using Ubuntu 18.04.5, the long-term support. And if you don't know the name of that, which is Bionic, you can look up and you can just type in like the releases of Ubuntu 18.04. As you can see here, Bionic Beaver. The word Bionic is the starting of it. The newer long-term support is Focal Fossa, so you would use the word focal but use all little letters, so that you can look up the versions of Ubuntu if you're using Ubuntu or any of the Ubuntu derivatives and put the name of the operating system that's currently installed on your system. So I wouldn't want to put Focal there because it would be looking for Ubuntu versions of Focal, and they may not work with the older version of the long-term support. So let me hit cancel, and you can always go back to restore default. If you accidentally type something in there and don't remember what it was, you could restore it back to what it automatically found. But I'll hit cancel. Here's where you can manage your PPAs. When you click on that, it'll take some time because it's searching through all the PPAs that's installed on your current system. In this case is my laptop system. And when it's finished, it will display all the PPAs, all the third-party PPAs that I have added since I have installed Ubuntu 18.04 on this system. As you can see here, some people may consider that a lot. Some people may not consider that a lot. Depends. That's kind of a subjective. But as you can see, all of them have the parentheses on the end. These are compatible with my operating system. So this lets you, if you find something that's not Bionic, and it could be causing problems on your system, you could click on that and click to purge it. And that's why I said manual purge. I don't want it to go through and purge something because I might have found a repository that worked with an earlier version, and I've installed it to allow me to install an older version of a piece of software, and it may work. So I don't want the program to go in there and automatically purge something that's not matching up with Bionic. I want to be able to click on it manually to remove it. So if I did want to take something out, let's say I installed OBS Studio, which is another screen recorder. Here I'm using Simple Screen Recorder, but I'm no longer wanting to use that. I could remove OBS, and then I could come in here and purge or remove that from my system to take it out so that it's not going to look for OBS updates in the future. And if I wanted to check out an update, I could click on that, click update, and it will go across the internet and update that particular PPA without me opening up the terminal, putting sudo apt update and press the enter, and then putting my password, because notice I'm already logged in as a super user. I can edit the source. So if I need to edit that, if I notice I typed something wrong, I can click onto it, and in a few moments it will come up allowing me to edit the selected. Here it is. It opened my G-editor. So if for some reason I need to make changes here, now this one it's not going to actually, because that's the pound sign, that just gives me some information. That one's the one it's going to look at. So if I've typed something in here wrong, I can fix it, hit the save button, and when I close, in a few moments, it should go back to my managed PPAs. You can say list the packages. Now I'm not going to do that. That would take a long time. Like for example, if I go and choose Flatpak, and I say list the packages that can be installed for Flatpak, there's probably hundreds if not thousands of applications that can be installed with that particular PPA, and it will list them, and it would take a long time to search those. If you're done with managing your PPA, you click the close button. Now here's the one I like. This is my favorite button of the PPA Manager. When I click the advanced button, it'll take a moment, and then it loads to a little dialog box. This allows you to scan and remove any duplicate PPAs that you may have installed on your system. So if I hit this and hit OK, it'll take a moment or two, not necessarily a second, but it'll take a little while, and it's scanning all the PPAs that's installed on my system. And in this case, since it came up back with this dialog box, it didn't find any. Now on my desktop, I did have a couple that I had installed that were duplicates, and it allowed me to remove duplicates. So that way when I'm updating my PPAs, it's not going to cause any error messages or extend the amount of time for looking through the PPAs. I can report missing GPG keys or fix bad signature errors when I go to update my PPAs. I can back up my repositories. Now this is good, like for example, when I do upgrade this laptop, and I will be doing that over the next several days, maybe the holidays or the Christmas holidays or New Year holidays, I'll probably be upgrading this laptop from Ubuntu 18.04, the long-term support, to version 20.04, the long-term supports. And I probably will say back up my repositories. And then after I install the newer version, instead of saying, and I can say restore the repositories backup, and I can tell it to re-enable the working PPAs after an Ubuntu upgrade. So I probably won't restore them because it will try to restore the Bionic. But since I'll be upgrading, it will disable all of the PPAs, third-party PPAs, and instead of opening back up, going to administration, software updates, and choosing them one at a time to see if they still work, I can click on this re-enable working PPAs after an Ubuntu upgrade. It will scan and see if it's compatible with this system, and it will check the ones that needs checking. So that will take some of the work out of upgrading your Ubuntu from an older version to a newer version to keep your third-party PPAs working with your applications that you installed with an earlier version so that they still can get updates with the newer version of Ubuntu. It may not work for all the third-party PPAs, but it will work for a large majority of them. Then you can upgrade, update your release name. We kind of saw something similar to that a while ago. When I click on that, this is where I can put my current version, like a while ago where you saw Focal or Bionic. And then it says your previous version. So if I've currently upgraded this here, I would put Focal because that would be the most current one of the long-term support. So I would type that in here. Then my previous one was Bionic, so I put that here and hit OK. So that way it keeps a recording of what my previous version was and what my current version is. So that way it will help when I go to say which ones work, to know which two operating systems, my older one compared with my newer one, which ones are working. So I'm going to cancel that out since I currently have nothing in there, and I just installed this with Bionic. So using this is a great tool for managing your PPAs. Now the last thing is the help menu. If you need help with any of these buttons, you click on the help menu, and it'll take a while, and it loads up, and it gives you a description of every single one of the buttons. I also give a description on my webpage. So if you found this video on YouTube, I will provide a link below the video in the description area that you can click on this to get a description and an image. It has a little brief description for each one of those. And I have it where you can click here to actually go to the Launchpad website, which I already clicked on, which is here. So there's two open, where you can get some more information about how to put that in there, and updating gives you more information about this. So this is the PPA Manager on Launchpad. So hopefully this video has been helpful to you, and have a great day.